Hey, friends, I'm Thea Charles, and you are listening to the Push or Pivot podcast. In this series, we discuss the path someone chooses when they are at a crossroads of their life. Do they push through the adversity, or do they stop, reassess, and pivot? In this episode, we spoke to Marissa Meddin, a digital nomad who told us about her journey to becoming a life coach and medium. Hello, Marissa. How are you today?
I am good, Thea. How are you?
Very good in our new normal of being in the house. Still good.
Yes.
How about you?
Quarantine time. It's different and interesting.
It is. And I'm excited to hear about your story and all the places you've been. And I think the best place to start is for you to just tell us all a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So feel free to prod or push if you want more information about anywhere. But my name is Marissa. I am a medium and I'm also a intuitive life coach. And I travel the world full time. I was just like, yeah, I am back in Atlanta, Georgia, which is my hometown. I'm here sitting out the coronavirus quarantine as all kind of travel was craziness. But yeah, typically I am living in a different country every single month working remotely in the world. And I came from a pretty traditional background. I went to the University of Michigan. I studied business. I loved the business side of everything. Worked for Pepsi in marketing, so the beverage company, for about 6 years in New York and LA before pivoting and changing my life and flipping it upside down. So I love to share the story of going from traditional corporate marketing to lots of weird, crazy, fun stuff that I'm doing all over the world now.
That is awesome. How did you go from being in this traditional workspace to travel?
Yeah, so there's a couple kind of pivotal moments that led to that when I look back at my own story of
Uh-huh.
pivoting. The first one was so I was living in New York at the time. I was commuting. I was living in Manhattan, commuting like an hour and a half each way, and I was ready to leave New York. And my boyfriend at the time took a job in LA, and I said, if you accept it, I will go with you. And so when it happened very quickly, and I was able to arrange with Pepsi to work remotely from LA. So that was the first kind of step that I took where I
Mhm.
realized, okay, I don't have to go into an office every day. And I'm at my computer, I was home in LA, but I was at a
Mhm.
computer doing work. And that was kind of life changing for me. I realized I was like, I don't like being in an office. I love being able to work from home. So that was the start. While I was there, I was on vacation in Hawaii and read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. So a lot of people who I call digital nomads, that's what I am, where we work remotely and live wherever in the world, have read this book and it changed their lives. And for me, I remember reading that in 2014, so it was many years ago now, thinking there's a different way to live. So the whole premise of the book is that you can work from a laptop from anywhere in the world and work fewer hours and automate a lot of things. And it really changed the way I started thinking. But it wasn't until 2016, 2 years after I read that book, with all of this in mind,
Mhm.
that I actually quit my job. As I read the book, I realized I would love to be living this lifestyle. I loved to travel, and I had about 2 or 3 weeks of vacation every year, in the corporate world.
Mhm.
And it just wasn't enough time to see all the places that I wanted to get to. And that was really my goal. So in 2016, I left the relationship I was in. I was actually engaged at that time. I left LA, moved back to Atlanta to start a business that ultimately would be remote where I could travel the world. And yeah, I quit my job and started my first business because it just was one of those times where I was restarting something and I thought
Mhm.
everything must change. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how it all began.
Oh, cool. Yeah, just like you just like rebirthed yourself.
Yes, yeah. I remember talking to my mom during this time when I left my relationship and left my home and everything in LA and come back to Atlanta, which is my hometown. But she said, just keep your job, like just keep one thing the same. And I just remember at that time it was like this isn't right either. And it was a time where it's like you push yourself so far doing things that it was almost I enjoyed. I was very happy. I enjoyed a lot of my life, but it just wasn't right. It was a wonderful company and all of that, but I didn't love brand marketing. I didn't,
Mhm.
I don't drink much soda. The products didn't work with me. So, it was an awesome company and wonderful coworkers. But again, it was just one of those moments where like rebirthing, like you said, where it feels like an awakening where everything had to be, built from the ground up again.
Wow. That's I have to even just acknowledge you for that. Just seeing that where you weren't feeling aligned, that you weren't drinking soda. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, why am I marketing this to other people? And power to, I think it brings joy to a lot of people. I've got
Yeah.
nothing against it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it wasn't what, brought me joy, what I was excited to, talk about and do all day. So yeah.
So what was the business that you built?
Yeah. So the first one, about 4 businesses into at this point. So
Mhm.
a lot of pivots for me. It's one of my
Okay.
favorite conversations to talk about and help people to say, do whatever is that next best thing you can think of, because
Mhm.
you're going to be exposed to new things along the way. But the first one I started was actually an e-commerce bakery business,
Okay.
which seems so random, but my mother had owned 4 dessert-only restaurants in Atlanta when I was growing up. She did it with her best friend for about 20 years and closed it back in 1996, I believe it
Okay.
was. I used to know this, but yes, it had been closed for about 20 years when I restarted her business. And
Mhm.
because I was thinking of that 4-hour work week style, I didn't open any restaurants like she did. And I had a very business mind. And I thought back to my college years of operations. And I thought,
Yep.
okay, if I make one product, I can have one packaging and I know it ships well and sells well.
Mhm.
So it was her secret kind of recipe that I created. People were obsessed with it. The reason I did it was it had a built-in demand and a built-in story. And it was the only thing, when I thought about that 4-hour work week, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it was just anything I could think of to try entrepreneurship, and start a brand that I felt would be successful. So I realized fairly quickly into that I really hated baking. But I ran the business for about a year and a half before I pivoted from that one as well. But it was an amazing start, and it just pushed me out to get, when people ask me the hardest part of, you know, traveling, starting all these businesses, doing, I've done a lot of crazy things over the last 4 or 5 years. The hardest part of all of it was leaving Pepsi, leaving that prestigious,
Mhm.
high paying, stable job that I was hanging out with celebrities and manage music videos. It was a seemingly wonderful thing. And the hardest part was telling people that I quit my job to bake brownies all day.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest pivot and the
But
first one.
and I can totally relate to that even with my own life.
Yeah.
'Cause I used to work at a hospital in this transplant lab, like the biggest one in our area.
Hmm.
And it was such a big shift for me to say, I'm not that identity anymore.
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. I didn't realize how much it was like inside of me that I
Yeah.
presented first with I work here and like I
Yes.
don't
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did this, can 100% relate to that. And I think it holds so many people back. And it's something we don't even realize. And especially in the US, when I think about our society compared to a lot of other places I've traveled in the world, when you meet someone in the US, I don't think we mean to do it, but it's like, hi, how are you? What do you do? And it really is our identity. And I didn't realize how much of my identity was wrapped in, hi, I'm Marissa. I work for Pepsi. And it was just easy. People knew the brand. It was, I didn't have to explain what I was doing.
Yep.
And when I left that, I did not realize how much it would impact my identity. And when people would ask, what do you do? Once I quit my job and started this
Mhm.
business, my answer would always be, well, I used to work for Pepsi, but now like dot, dot, dot. And yeah, it's a real honest struggle that it holds a lot of people back.
Yeah. And even you just saying that, like I did that all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Well, I used to work.
Yeah.
That gave me some extra clout. Like I was,
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
our prestige that
Mhm.
comes, and something I actually really love about traveling and the people that I meet during my
Mhm.
travels is that it's never the start of the conversation. It's who are you? What are you up to? Where'd you come from? Where have you been traveling? What excites you? It's this whole different conversation that's really flipped from what we're used to talking about in the US. And it's really helped me to take a step back and not care about that as much and really focus on just what brings me joy and how I'm serving other people.
That's awesome. That's really, really
Yeah.
so how do you I'm gonna look up this 4-hour work week, like, for sure.
Yes,
'Cause I'm
yes.
like, "Hey, hey." What are some things that you took from that like, how did you implement that, I guess?
Yeah, highly recommend The 4-Hour Work Week. It's by Tim Ferriss, and it's funny, it was written, I wanna say it was over a decade ago now. I don't know why 2004 is coming to my head. Maybe I made that up, but it was written many years ago, and he talks a lot of, he still, hosts a podcast and does a lot. And he always says that, a lot of the things from it are actually a little bit dated because of all the new technology and
Right.
things that we have. It's very tactical, like things you can implement, but he won't rewrite it because it's such a golden book that has impacted so many people. And he always says, I'm afraid to change anything because maybe it will lose its magic. But what I took from it, and again, it is very, I like it. It's very tactical because it makes you think of, what would be your idea? How can you test your idea and really think about it? But for me, the main takeaway was, and I guess maybe in 2014, it was even more novel of an idea that you can work from a laptop from absolutely anywhere. You don't need to be in an office. You don't need to be in a place. And not only that, I haven't quite managed to get to the 4 hours a week yet. But his whole point is, how do you outsource absolutely everything that you can? So for me in the business that I do, I feel like it's important to show up as me as a human and do some things, but I think about outsourcing everything. So when I first set up my dessert business, that first one that I launched, again, I could have, and old me probably would have said, there needs to be a restaurant. People in Atlanta want to congregate like they used to. And I had my mom's old clients were literally calling and emailing me every day saying, is this the place? Like, when are you opening it back up? We love to go there. It was our after school. It was our date night. It was our this, that, and the other. And I was like, I want to give the people what they want.
Yeah.
But I had some Ferris in the back of my head thinking, that's not outsourced. That's not automated. And so as I start, when I started the business, and often when you start something, you end up doing a little bit of everything as it gets going.
Yep.
But once it got big enough with enough orders, I actually outsourced all the baking, which my mom and I did all of to start, to a company that was 30 minutes outside of Atlanta that created cinnamon rolls. And they then did all of the baking. They were better at it because they, had all the
Yep.
better equipment and all of that. But it was, how do you focus on what only you are capable of and good at? And then how do you outsource everything else so that you can be completely remote and focus on the things that, you can check on and you can enjoy, and empower other people to do the other parts of your business.
That's really awesome and really great advice. Actually, it's something that not we, but I actually was talking with someone prior to you on another interview. And we were talking about our zone of genius, like
Yes, I love
in
that.
your zone of genius,
Yes.
and like knowing that you have to ask for help,
Yeah.
and other people, that's their zone, and they'll take you even further if you can
Yeah.
look it
I
up.
think what's I love, and that's from Starts with Why, right? I think
Yeah.
the talk about Zone of Genius,
Mhm.
one of my favorite books that I absolutely recommend to. I always say start with a 4 hour work week if you need an idea, but then or do Starts with Why by Simon Sinek to understand what your mission is. But
Mhm.
when you think about the zone of genius, something that I've struggled with as an entrepreneur, and I really lately am trying to focus on, is that other people may never do every part of your business as well as you would. Some
Mhm.
people will do those parts better than you would. But when you talk about your zone of genius, it is what is your best use of time? What brings you the joy? What excites you? What is that unique thing that really, truly only you can do in your business? And even if there's things that you could do, if you hire someone else and they're going to do it 80% better, it's really hard to let go of that control. But you're working outside of your zone of genius. So if you hire someone else to do it, you can really stick to what is uniquely and gives you that competitive advantage. And I have to take my own advice here too. It's definitely still something that I work on, outsourcing all those other parts, but it really, really makes an impact.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had your place in Atlanta making brownies.
Yeah.
How is it that you are now all over the world? Like, what happened?
Yeah. So when I was doing that, I did set that up. I thought that would be the business that I would be running remotely and traveling the world, because I had that vision in mind of I want to travel the world while I do it. I quickly found that I was only taking, I was started outsourcing the business, but I would only leave for a week or two or maybe 3 weeks at a time, pretty much only 1 or 2 weeks then. And really only going when I had friends or family or someone who would travel with me. I've done solo traveling in my life. I just did a solo trip through Egypt and Jordan and some other places, but I'm a very social extroverted person and I like traveling with friends. And so I quickly realized that I wanted to travel the world with other people. So I joined it's a company called Wi-Fi Tribe, and I travel with them. So they have places basically set up a month at a time with other people who are digital nomads and all working remotely too. So it's like this date to this date, you all arrive, your home is set up, you're with amazing, amazing other people. So that's mostly how I travel. I'll then kind of take some of those people and do some solo traveling, or get a couple of people and go elsewhere.
Yep.
But that's the traveling side. I'm no longer running the dessert business. I've pivoted 2 or 3 or 4 times since then. What I'm running now. But from there, I actually learned about online courses. And I actually launched a business helping parents in the US with college admissions. This business still exists. But this is where I love and really teach the pivot. For me, as I look back on my own, I'm a certified life coach now and am a medium, as in speaking with people who are no longer alive, which is a whole nother story. And, both of those things I never would have imagined I'd be doing, especially while remote and traveling the world. But as I look back, it's, each one of these businesses or journeys that I took led me to the next one. And if I never left Pepsi and I'd never started that dessert business, I don't regret it, even though it was a ton of work and setup that I closed. But when I was running that business, I actually learned, I was trying to grow my email list, which is, the number one way entrepreneurs grow their businesses. I was doing that for my dessert business. And I saw a Facebook ad that said, how to grow your email list. So I clicked on it, and it turned out that it was a whole webinar about online courses. And I learned that you could monetize information that you knew and sell that. And it didn't involve baking, and it didn't involve UPS shipments that got lost in the mail sometimes or were late. And so while I was running the dessert business, I had a side hustle for my own business, building out this business to help families with college admissions. And that was really the one I was running. I closed the dessert business once that was big enough, and spent that time to start in my, this is about 2 years ago, running that while I was traveling, and traveling is what taught me about coaching, and that I was, helping all these people and so on. So I can talk about those pivots to you, but that was kind of how my international business journey got started.
That's so cool. Tell me more. Keep going.
Keep going. I know.
Come on, this is awesome.
Lots of pivots and weird stories. Yeah. So I was running. Okay. So this business still exists. It's again, Tim Ferriss style, very automated, more so than the dessert one even. But yeah, so as I was running that one, like I said, was living, this is when I was in Bali, which was like the stereotypical first place to start, but I really wanted to go to Southeast Asia, and I ended up traveling for 4 months over 10 countries. And I was with this group of people from Wi-Fi Tribe, as I mentioned, in Bali. And I was really helping a lot of the people in that group, and also these random strangers that I was meeting in planes and buses and trains, all along the way. Helping them with a lot that I had recently gone through. So as a coach, I say you often end up helping a past version of yourself, no matter what business you're running. And so I was helping people quit careers, figure out what careers they wanted to start, what really excited them. I was helping them with relationships. Should they be in that relationship? Should they not? All these things that I had been through. And I had always done this with friends, but I just assumed that's what friends did. I didn't realize that it was this special gift, more so than I think the average person. And it really, getting outside my comfort zone in Asia, across the world, and traveling, meeting all of these new people. And often, almost every day I had someone telling me this big deep dark thing that they would say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never told you this to anybody. And I would help them in these amazing ways. And it really took these strangers to hold a mirror to myself to realize that this was a special gift that I had. And I would say 2, maybe 3 months into this journey in Asia, I was in the Philippines with a friend, and I remember deciding, I had so many people say, "Are you a life coach? Like, will you be my life coach?" And it just made me realize, okay, I guess here we go. We're pivoting again. I thought I had the thing, but I gotta keep following this. And that's really the biggest lesson I've learned away. It's like when you have those things that just are in your face and calling you and exciting you, and you realize this was my zone of genius. I had to follow it. So I got a coaching certification, and for the past 2 years or so, I've been doing one-on-one coaching. My niche is starting with helping people who are in jobs that they don't quite love, but they aren't quite sure what that next step is. What is their zone of genius? What is that grander purpose that they have, or do they even have one? And what are the next steps? And a lot of people I coach also want to work remotely and travel the world and all of that, because that's the life that I'm living. But that was the next biggest thing. And under that is a lot of deeper emotional work, which is really my true joy, is helping people through all of this mindset work that I'd been binging podcasts and reading all these self-development books since I left that relationship and quit my job and was a hot mess and figuring out life for myself. And now I basically get paid to really share all of that information that I'm learning, and all of the again, the mindset work, that emotional work, figuring out our zone of genius and that joy, and how to help people find that for themselves, and all the exercises along the way. So there's one more pivot after that, and I'm kind of combining a lot of the world, but that's how I started the coaching world.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's really similar to how I became a coach as well. For me, it was a big, like a revelation to realize that the thing that I'm good at doesn't have to be hard. Like I didn't realize, it felt like it just so naturally, and it's like, oh, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah. That is such an important thing to notice. I think, again, in the US especially, but all over the world, we've been somehow taught to think that we have to suffer at work, and work has to be miserable. And, when I live in New York, I think back especially where people are really proud of, it's like, I've been working 20 hours today and I haven't slept in 3 weeks, and it's exhausting, and my boss is this and that. And that was the norm, right? And that's what a lot of people in our world think. It has to be hard. Work has to be hard. You have to suffer. There's something about this suffering that we have equated to, exchange for money. And what you're saying is so important, because what I help people figure out is, there's always going to be tasks or things that maybe aren't the most fun with any job. But when you're working in your zone of genius, and when you are really, doing the work, I say quote unquote work that you're meant to be doing, it should feel fun, and it feel exciting. And I think what I love to help people realize is that you can absolutely get paid or create a product that you can monetize, whether that's information or a physical product or software or whatever, that monetizes what you love. And it's this whole new way of thinking that I was not aware of back in my corporate days.
Right. I think a lot of us.
Yeah.
So tell me about the next pivot.
Yeah. So this last pivot, maybe it'll be I keep thinking, I'm like, please be my last one, but we'll always keep pivoting. I'll always keep pivoting. So my last one, as I was studying, again, just obsessed, and again, my joy, what I love is talking about that self-development and mindset. But the other 50% of what I really love is talking about this world that a lot of people, I would say, some people are believers, some people are not. Totally cool either way. So my mom growing up was always into the spiritual world of past lives and crystals and psychics and mediums. And she would always talk about, feeling spirits in the room or her own past lives. And growing up, I never had my own personal experiences, but I always believed in it and believed that she did. And when I came back to Atlanta, I was going to a lot of sessions with her, visiting mediums and psychics, and I just became really fascinated, because I started seeing this link between all of the business books and podcasts that I was reading and listening to, and this world of energy and law of attraction and quantum physics and crystals and all of these things. So I started reading and learning a lot about it. And as I did this, I totally accidentally learned that I actually had a gift of doing this as well, which makes sense, as I believe it somewhat runs in the family. But I now discovered that I was a medium. I communicate with people who are no longer alive, and I do it all through writing. So for me, I have a website that people submit a photo and a list of questions that they wish to ask someone who's passed on. And it comes out, I don't speak it, I don't see ghosts or things like that, but I do this all through what I call my letters. So it's a letter from someone who has passed on to someone who is still alive, answering these questions. And again, the first couple happened as an accident as I was journaling. I do a lot of journaling just for like emotional release. And I thought I was insane when it first started as well. And to be honest, I still am learning about this whole world. And I think there's no way to know if it's real or it's not, but I keep doing it because the letters that I was writing for people, and I did a bunch of tests for free to
Yeah.
start before I pivoted as a real business.
Uh-huh.
But I would write these letters for people, and I tested it doing it for people who I did not know. I didn't know the people who had passed on, and every single one, every single person would call me, basically saying, "I'll call you soon. I've been sitting here crying for 30 minutes as I'm reading this letter over and over and over and over again." And everything they said was, I don't know how you knew these things. It sounded just like them, or I can't believe you knew this information. And
Uh-huh.
really, ultimately, how helpful and healing it was for them. It was closure, or just feeling like they were still connected to the person who they'd lost.
Mhm.
And so when I talk about, Simon Sinek, back to, my own zone of genius, and my greater mission is really to heal people. I believe that there's so much suffering, both physically and emotionally, in this world, and both the coaching and the medium work that I do, whether it's helping you find alignment in your career, or figuring out your relationship, or communicating with someone who is no longer alive, or just
Mhm.
getting out of your own mental stress in your head and finding ways to find more joy in life. I think that heals people. And so now I'm really starting to merge my worlds for people who are into this, to do, again, that the coaching, the medium letters, both of these. And I'm pivoting. I'll do some more group coaching for people
Yeah.
who want to learn about this and all of that. But that's my latest where I am. Who knows where I'll be in a year or two. But I think I have this now, this umbrella of this, like, that's my mission, and I don't think that will change, is to help heal people, and the execution will continue to grow and pivot as I learn and I expand as well.
This has been so awesome.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Like, you're really incredible. Really.
Oh, thank you. It's been a bizarre and up and down and scary world, but yeah, just kind of pushing through any fears that come up, and just, yeah, traveling the world while I do it. That's my other joy, is really traveling and getting out and seeing the world, and meeting people from absolutely everywhere.
Yeah. It's just really cool to see how much you trust yourself and listen to your intuition and act on that. It's really commendable. It's really awesome.
Oh, thank you. And it's hard. I think, as I love that you bring up, I love that you bring that up, and listening to your intuition. I think a lot of us, and if you'd asked me 5 years ago, and a lot of people have lost touch with that. I think it's something that it's built into every one of us. And a lot of the coaching that I actually do is teaching people how to listen to their intuition. And it's different. There's this, I call it the ego versus the intuition. The ego is that chatter, that voice in your head
Mhm.
that is scared and wants to keep you safe and wants to keep you in your job and in your relationship and in your home and your country and
Yeah.
wherever. And there's an inner voice, and again, I'm not saying everybody needs to travel the world and go talk to dead people.
Right.
Everybody has their own path, and your intuition will lead you there. And a lot of the coaching that I do is helping people to get in touch with their intuition and actually learn, what is that voice of fear that is holding you back, and what is it that you really want to pursue, and that will bring you joy in life, and that's going to lead you who knows where. That's the scary part. As I look back, there's the Steve Jobs quote: you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards.
Wow.
And I believe your intuition kind of has that vision that helps you take all those steps that are going to lead you wherever it is that you go.
That is awesome. So awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Um, if you could give someone you've given us a lot, but I'm gonna ask for another. If you could give us
Yeah.
one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say to do whatever excites you, to follow that. I've talked, that's kind of been woven throughout, all of these stories, and even the most recent, listening to your intuition and all of that. But I think that a lot of us get stuck in just, again, doing what's safe. And if we don't know this perfect plan and vision of what is that thing that I'm meant to be doing in life, and if I don't know it, I'm just going to sit right here where I am. And a lot of people never leave that, I think, for their whole lives. And so my greatest advice would be, whatever excites you, whether that's, walking down the street, whether that's talking to a certain friend, whether that's signing up for an online course, talking to a coach, reading specific books, whatever you are drawn to for reasons that you may not know or understand, or you can't predict what will happen, follow that, because that might be your thing, or it might be a dot along the way that leads you somewhere else. But I think that's the best way to start listening to your intuition, is follow those good feelings, following what brings you joy, and following just what excites you and makes you curious.
That is awesome. Marissa, thank you.
You are so welcome, Thea.
How can someone contact you and learn more?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple different ways. If you want to follow just my travel life, send me a DM, whatever. I'm on Instagram at ML Meddin. So it's MLMEDD as in Delta IN. That's one way. That's really just my travel life, and yeah, I'm quarantined in Atlanta right now with coronavirus, but I hope one day I can travel again. But other than that, there are, I guess, two different ways. If you're interested in either the coaching or the mediumship side, you can go to marissameddin.com/pusherpivot. That's the coaching world. So that will give you, if you are kind of in a place where you aren't sure what to do in your own life with your career and questions, it has a list of questions there that you can download and then kind of come into my world that way. If you happen to be interested in the medium side and all of that, I know that's different, but you can go to marissamedium.com/pusherpivot and enter your email to view a sample letter that I've written for someone and see just what that looks like and what it's all about if that's of interest to you. So yeah, a couple different places to find me.
Well, thank you so much for being on here, and I can't wait to listen to this again. So I know everyone's going to.
Oh, wonderful. It was such a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, I look forward to anyone who wants to reach out to come into my world. And I look forward to staying in touch with you.
What did you take away from Marissa's story? What excites you? I'm Thea Charles, and I hoped you gained insight from this story. If you'd like to learn more about the Push or Pivot podcast, visit us on Instagram at pusherpivot or on the web at pusherpivot.com. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and join me next time on the Push or Pivot podcast.